Dune is a film of monotonous yellowed sepia tone. The book, however, is not the color of sepia tone, it's the color of paper. The world of Dune, a dated anticipation of future technology, is quite tangible. A faded yet durable relic of retrofuturism, the likes of Hyperion. Do androids dream of electric sheep, or films like Blade Runner and Beyond the Black Rainbow? Go watch Beyond the Black Rainbow. That oddity does not get enough buzz. The tactility, the coarse and rough interfaces that do look quite usable. Buttons, dials, knobs, gears, the slight hum of electrical interference. Dune 2021 is adapted from the legendary fiction of Frank Herbert, a very decent adaptation at that. Even if Danny Villeneuve did give it the old college try, there's always the slight minutiae that get lost in translation. To be fair, it's hard to match the volume of description that a book has. Hundreds of pages of explanation and monologuing, detail after detail. Even Alexander Jodorowsky simply describing what his version of Dune would be like is probably much better than the actual film he would have made.
I was Frank Herbert, you know? Like this, but with love, with love.
While I do think 2021's Dune is a good adaptation, there's a few things that did not successfully make the jump from text to screen. The first thing that gives me the heebie-jeebies is Dune itself, the desert planet of Arrakis. Yeah, sand is coarse and rough, and it does get everywhere. The film does convey the uncaring and uncompromising cruelty of the planet, but it misses the life that is on that planet. In essence, the only life we do see is a miniature model of a city, crowds that seem to be extended with the help of CGI and some random locals. No different than a harsh Arabian town, all other bits are quickly glossed over. For most of the film, areas and spaces feel cornered off, only a few people occupying a small bit of a larger space. This looks like a set. This looks like a soundstage. A beautiful setting, but ultimately a set. You might be surprised to know that there are actually millions of people living on the planet, different cultures all interacting, smugglers, manufacturers, politicians, ordinary families, not just primitive and superstitious Middle Eastern people. Without the people, we're also missing the harsh lives of the people. The book goes into much more detail about the technology that's been developed for such a harsh environment, the regular catching of dew, people having to live in airtight seals just to reclaim water when indoors. The fact that the Duke's household is able to have the windows open is a mark of enormous wealth, that they can let water vapor escape. This impressive model is not the only city. There are quite a number of cities on the planet, with the city of Arrakis being the only one that we get to see. A whole economy and infrastructure. My image from the novel was of a bustling yet harsh marketplace. This is the planet of spice melange, so it would necessarily be a place of human movement and motion. Liet Kynes is portrayed as a slightly mysterious woman, but ultimately a simple character. She is the judge of the change overseeing the transfer of Arrakis from House Harkonnen to House Atreides, ensuring that procedures and rules are followed. It turns out that she knows of the coming betrayal, but has been instructed to say nothing. She decides to help Paul and Jessica anyways, reveals that she's actually a Fremen, and dies in the process. Her revealing that she is a Fremen is an interesting reveal, but it has little to no weight behind it.
I'm Fremen. The desert's my home.
The audience might think, okay, so what? While a decent, although lackluster character in the film, the book's version of Kynes is a much more pivotal and crucial role. Within the book, Kynes has an air of power, an air of respect that follows him. As he is introduced, the Fremen and locals fear him. The Atreides do not understand the reason why.
The Imperial Ecologist, my lord, Dr. Kynes.
We prefer the traditional term, planetologist.
As it turns out, Liet Kynes' father was an Imperial ecologist, Pardo Kynes, who was the first to be sent to study Arrakis. Pardo, oddly enough, became somewhat of a prophet among the Fremen, an extremely well-educated and principled man. The Fremen eventually all got behind his idea of the slow and sure terraforming of the planet, from the unforgiving desert to a lush and green future, a process which would take many generations to complete. His son Liet Kynes was next in line to continue that legacy. Given vast amounts of power and respect, Liet was something closer to the leader or governor of all Fremen.
They'll kill you! Me? I'm Dr. Kynes.
The leader we met earlier in the film, Stilgar, played by the dashing Javier Bardem, is only the leader of one small tribe of Fremen, while all these small tribes answer to Liet Kynes.
Who are you to the Fremen?
Throughout the book, House Atreides and Duke Leto slowly earn the respect of Kynes. Unlike the more brutal Harkonnens, Leto seems to generally care about people and life. He would easily sacrifice a huge machine factory of spice just to save a small handful of people. Gestures like this impress Kynes, who sees the opportunity for a worthy partner in House Atreides, and as Kynes is the de facto leader behind the scenes, this means that the Atreides are slowly earning the respect of the Fremen as a whole. Kynes is essentially a giant fulcrum, a pivot for the entire planet's respect. A small gripe that I have is the litany against fear. I think they missed this one in an odd way. The litany's importance and constant use in the novel added a good amount of depth to the read, and this is my small gripe. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear, permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
Only I will remain.
The mantra is used many times throughout the Dune series, a nice little calming spell. Jessica and Paul are constantly mentioning their use of these calming techniques, hinting at the internal use of this poem during the chaos on Arrakis, the fight between the Harkonnens, and their troubles throughout the desert. Interestingly enough, the litany comes from Shakespeare. A coward dies 1,000 times before his death, but the valiant taste of death but once. It seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. This grander idea of the only thing to fear is fear itself did not originate with John F. Kennedy. The importance of facing one's own fear and letting it pass through you, over you, is ultimately lost on the film. We only hear the phrase through Lady Jessica. Originally within the book, it is Paul that uses the mantra as he's enduring the galactic boo-boo box. In the Dune story, fear and panic are seen as a bestial emotion, something that humans need to rise above to endure, face, and remain. It is such a great visualizing language of fear engulfing you, passing over you and through you, and yet you remain. The sandstorm that traps Paul and Jessica is a big whole mess of fear and panic, but it's not the place to be overwhelmed by fear. That is an animal's response. If one is able to stay balanced in that predicament, the storm eventually passes and Jessica and Paul remain. The Duke Leto's final words have much more weight when this litany against fear is remembered. Here I am, and here I will remain. The fear of betrayal, of destruction and failure. He will die, but his legacy will remain. I'm glad that the mantra was included, but its thematic importance seems a bit glossed over. Even though Denis Villeneuve's film does fall short in some key areas, let's give credit where credit is due. The 1984 Lynch version of Dune is rife with people talking to themselves, internal monologue after internal monologue.
The water of life. Tell me of your home world, Usul.
Kwisatz Haderach, the super being.
It is so distracting and completely takes the momentum out of any scene. Just a close-up shot of a character's face with internalized whispering.
Assurance of trust.
What does she fear? She's using the voice.
The Bene Gesserit mother.
Yet, this style is faithful to the book. In Herbert's Dune, you hear almost everyone's thoughts. It reveals so much more about their character, their motivations, and their fears. You learn who is scamming who and what cards each person is holding. But it does not work on the silver screen. The internal voices insist on telling the story rather than just showing us. Film and visual language has such ability to convey a subtle flinch of the eyes, the odd posture. Visuals can illustrate so much and let the audience infer what they can. Don't forget, most novels have a descriptive, omnipotent narrator, and you usually do not put that in a film either.
Another member of the Duke's household is Duncan Idaho.
Dune is not only a twisted messianic tale, but also tagging along with that a story about the rise and fall of empires, the dynamic shifts in power and control, the small exchanges between large entities. The signing of contracts, push the wax, nod in agreement. What I want from my science fiction is an expansion of the human condition, a reframing of what people are and have been for so long, but on a cosmologically grand scale. Humans tend to develop into consistent patterns of organization. The Spacing Guild, Chom Company, the Emperor, and all the great houses of the Lanzarat all keep the system in a kind of balance, always fraught with danger, ready to collapse, but kept together out of the fear of possible chaos, not dissimilar from how things work right now, last year, last century, and the way back in the long ago. Once you get away from how people have organized for millennia, there's no frame of reference for the audience. Dune 2021 did a great job at visualizing this vying for power, the importance of showmanship, the dance of politics. The Emperor has a plan, the Bene Gesserit have their own, Harkonnens, Atreides, the other houses of the Lanzarat. Plans within plans, a feint within a feint, treachery within treachery within treachery. The final piece that felt really great was the tactility of the world. The small design, the low-grade tech, the monitor and gear and gauges and vehicles, the slight use of futuristic technology, the floating lights, holographic video files, the use of feudal signatures, rings and family heirlooms, all the physical and tangible world is excellent. Rooms feel lived in. My own image from the book felt more rounded and more colorful, thopters that looked more like this instead of this. The film did not fit my own image, but it did very well on its own. Even with something holographic, the design still feels real, crafted and built for basic human interaction. Not this overly complex holographic interface of Tony Stark. What is even happening here? In the end, Danny Villeneuve and his massive team did their best. While there's much that is lost when translating a book to film, Dune still did a bang-up job. So there's a few pieces that I left out, hoping they get addressed in the sequel. If you haven't yet, there's still time to actually read the book if you want a more thorough description of the world. If you have any comments or suggestions of what you want me to do, you can email me here. It's right there. I'll put it right there. And thanks for watching.